Hi everyone, today's video is going to be a quick rundown of interesting events and controversies at the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics. I will cover some basic stuff like medals, new events, countries that were successful, countries that weren't so successful. But the majority of this video will be about the drama and controversy that happened during the Olympic Games. With that, there's a lot to cover, so let's get started. Now, my first thing I'm going to do is going to be a rundown of the medals of the events. Now, I'm going to base this on the number of medals that were actually earned as opposed to the country with the most gold medals, as it showcases a more well-rounded appearance at the Games. So this year, Norway came out on top with 16 gold medals, 8 silver, 13 bronze for a total of 37. With their number of gold medals, they would also have been the top anyway, so they did really, really well this Games. The Russian Olympic Committee came in second with 6 gold, 12 silver, and 14 bronze for a total of 32. Germany would come in third with 12 golds, 10 silver, and 5 bronze for a total of 27. And Canada came in fourth with a total of 4 gold, 8 silver, and 14 bronze for a total of 26 medals. However, if you base it just on bronze medals, Canada and the Russian Olympic Committee would have come in first place. So the remaining top nations include, kind of in order, some of these nations were tied, but the USA, Sweden, Austria, Japan, the Netherlands, Italy, and in 11th place, the host nation of China. Now, there were a total of 4 or possibly 5 athletes caught doping at this Games. One specifically I will talk about a little bit later because it's a bit of a big deal. So when it comes to new events at this Olympic Games, they include big air freestyle skiing, women's mono bob, and mixed team events in ski jumping, snowboard cross, short track speed skating, and freestyle skiing aerials. Now, countries such as Haiti and Saudi Arabia sent their first athletes to the Winter Olympics, and an additional bonus competition of don't get radiation poisoning was held for a number of events, backdropped by a nuclear power site. For legal reasons, this is a joke, but they did actually hold events in front of nuclear power sites, so maybe it's not that much of a joke. So when it comes to the Canadian women's ice hockey team, they won gold again, now with 5 gold medals and 2 silver. They continue to cement their spot as the best women's ice hockey team in the world and probably throughout history. So during the women's hockey tournament, however, the Canadian and Russian Olympic Committee teams played an entire match in masks. It turns out that there was a bit of a COVID outbreak, but in the ROC team, and to continue with the kind of continuity of the tournament and to ensure everyone played safely, both teams played an entire 60 minutes on the ice with N95 masks, which, knowing hockey is quite a difficult sport. You're just kind of like constantly sprinting, you're breathing a lot of cold air in, so for them to wear masks the entire time really goes to show that masks are definitely safe to use. So if anyone ever complains about having to put one on for 15 minutes going to the grocery store, you can remind them of that fact. Now, what people consider to be one of the biggest controversies during the actual Games is Russian figure skater Camilla Vallieva and her positive test for a banned substance. Now, her positive test surfaced on February 9th after the Russian figure skating team won gold in the team competition with her help. As her test surfaced after the event but before the medal ceremony, the ceremony was cancelled. Now, the Court of Arbitration for Sport would allow her to compete in the singles events, of which she was a favorite, but added that like the team event, if she won a medal, there would be no medal ceremony. She would later have a very difficult skate and finish in 4th, thus saving the IOC and the Court of Arbitration of Sport some very awkward questions and interviews. However, the investigation is still underway for the team event, with the possibility of Russia being stripped of their gold medal. Now, many were upset that the IOC allowed her to continue to compete even with a positive doping test. Under the IOC's rules, because she's only 15 years old, she's considered a protected person and not necessarily at fault for the positive doping result. Most of the blame would likely lie on her coaching team, who in itself is quite controversial. Now, I'll be getting more into the Russian national figure skating coaching team in a separate video, as it spans not just Olympics, but a couple of previous Olympic Games. They are known for being incredibly strict and really running down a lot of their athletes at a young age to the point where they're only really able to do a couple of years of international figure skating. So stay tuned for that. But also this issue currently with Vallieva will develop further as the investigation continues and is resolved. So we might see Russia losing a gold medal for this event. Now I'm going to get into a couple different judging disqualification faux pas for a couple different events. I'm going to focus first on the ski jump competition. Now there was kind of a mass disqualification in the new mixed event, which includes 2 men and 2 women per team per nation. So this mass disqualification saw some of the top competitors such as Austria, Germany, Norway, and Japan all disqualified for suit violations. The violation being that the suits were not tight enough. Now in ski jumping, wind resistance plays a huge role in the outcome of the sport, so skis and suits are checked fairly regularly for any violations against the rules. Now all of the competitors who were disqualified, being 5 of them, were all women, which is kind of strange that a lot of these top teams would all be disqualified in one event for kind of the same reason. When internationally they've competed without really any problem for a couple of years now, and many of them use the exact same suits in preliminary qualifying events only a few days prior and weren't disqualified then. So it seems like there might have been a mix-up or confusion, or the judges got really, really strict for the kind of final event, because it doesn't really seem like these top 4 teams would cheat in any way or all cheat in the same way. Now it doesn't really look like there's going to be an investigation into this at all, and the medals will kind of stay as they stand, but it was kind of a strange event that happened at the game. Now there were also a number of disgruntled athletes when it came to judging in different sports like snowboarding, skiing, speed skating, short and long course, amongst a couple of other ones. But I want to look specifically at the short course speed skating, where the host nation China ended up winning a couple additional medals, including 2 gold ones, only after other nations were disqualified for various different obstructions. Now there were issues in the mixed team 2000, the men 1000, the men's 500, the women's 500, and the men's 5000 relay events. For each of these events, the quote-unquote event or the disqualification, a lot of them did involve a Chinese athlete and or no calls, questionable disqualifications, and judging. Now there were a few people who believe there may be a greater conspiracy involved, as it seemed that with every no call and disqualification, crash, or event, a Chinese athlete benefited in some way and or was not disqualified. Now there might not be anything to this and just purely coincidence. And in some of the cases, these Chinese athletes didn't even really get very far afterwards or didn't even make it to the final round. But there are a lot of questions circling around the fact that the nature of the games, the nature of China seemingly benefiting more than any other nation in order to get to final events kind of happened in a few different sports here. So it's a little strange, but there's not going to be a whole lot of investigation into it at this point. Now touching on a video I did earlier, talking about what things were kind of happening before the games, the IOC did meet with Peng Shuai, a Chinese tennis player who accused a Chinese government official of sexual assault and basically then just disappeared from public life when she returned back to China, thus causing a lot of concern for her health and well-being. Now the IOC said that they would go and meet with Shuai when they were in China. So it turns out they did meet, nothing really came out of it, and Peng later said that it was a huge misunderstanding, which has led to many to continue to fear for her safety and well-being, and whether something has gone on behind the scenes to kind of deter her from speaking out further. Because it's very strange that, you know, an allegation like this is made outside of China. As soon as she returns home to China, she withdraws said allegation, and it's kind of a known fact that China does have and has historically had a lot of stuff to do with censorship and deterring people from speaking out against their government in any form. So hopefully she's doing all right. So I've delayed filming and posting this video for about a week now to see what was going to happen with the presence of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border. I'm filming this on March 2nd, about a week after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And this conflict is obviously devastating for the nation of Ukraine and is going to have major international implications, of which we'll only really discover as the situation continues at this point. Now, I won't get into the conflict itself and its reasonings. That's for news channels other than Russia's state-run media. Don't listen to that. That's all propaganda. However, this does actually relate to the Olympic Games and Russia's future in international sport. So, a bit of background, even going back to the ancient Olympic Games, the tradition of an Olympic truce was held where all the kings of Greece and its city-states would sign a peace treaty to allow spectators and athletes to travel to the Olympics to compete. And basically, upon honor, the countries refrained from any conflicts during this time, which covered a period before and after the Games. Now, it was formally revived in 1994 and has been part of the Olympic Games since. So in December 2021, the Olympic truce was signed by all the attending nations for the Beijing 2020 Winter and Paralympic Games. And this would start 7 days before the regular Winter Olympics and then end 7 days after the Paralympics, of which Russia is currently in violation of. And Russia has done this before, both in 2008 and 2014. Shortly after the Olympic Games, Russia invaded other parts of Ukraine, South Ossetia and Crimea respectively, and faced no real consequences from the IOC or the international sporting community really until now. So on Thursday, the 24th of February, the IOC denounced Russia's invasion of Ukraine and have since added they will be excluding Russian and Belarusian athletes from the Paralympics. And they have also been requesting that all other international sporting organizations do this as well. So along with the IOC effectively banning these athletes, many other countries are refusing to compete with Russia or Belarus in other sports such as ice hockey, soccer, figure skating, Eurovision if you count that as a sport. And many of these international sporting organizations are disallowing Russia and Belarus to actually allow athletes to compete. Now, the IOC stated that this ban on these athletes was needed to protect the integrity of global sports competitions and for the safety of all their participants. But basically, there are 71 Russian athletes that are expected to compete for the Paralympics. These athletes will have to cover up any paraphernalia on their uniforms relating to the Russian Paralympic Committee. So they're going to have to put tape over them. They will be competing as what's considered neutral athletes, so they won't have anything related to either country, Russia or Belarus, for if they're winning medals. They won't be allowed onto the medal tables. They won't have any anthems. The flag will be just a standard IOC flag as well. So whereas previously the IOC has kind of been flexible on Russia representing itself at the Games with the whole Russian Olympic Committee, but for them to take this kind of stance against Russia and Belarus is kind of a big deal, as it has really pushed that it's an apolitical organization for such a long time, completely disallowing any actual form of relation back to their home country is a bit of a big deal, and them speaking out about it as well is also pretty huge. And they were kind of the spearhead leading a lot of other international sporting organizations to disallow Russia and Belarus from competing as well. On top of the also currently ongoing doping controversy and a history of disregarding the Olympic truce, this could be grounds for not allowing Russia to compete at the Olympics in any format until they can prove that they can follow the rules otherwise. Now, in regards to the Ukrainian Paralympic athletes, the IOC has sent humanitarian aid for the Olympians and their support staff. Now, it's unlikely that many Ukrainian athletes will be able to safely leave the country or to compete at the Olympic Games, but there may be some who are already out of the country before the invasion began. So if you're planning on watching the Paralympic Games, and you see any Ukrainian athlete participating, watch them, cheer them on, support them, and if you can, donate any money to help currently with the humanitarian and refugee crisis that's going on in Europe and in Ukraine. And that is a rundown of what happened at the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympic Games. Of course, things might change as time goes on and investigations will kind of continue. Stay tuned for some more information coming up about the 2022 Paralympic Games, as I'll hopefully be doing a similar video as well. But I do hope you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for more coming up soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.